At my baby shower, my brother stood up and announced he'd been accepted into Stanford. From that point on, the celebration shifted and became all about him. While I wiped frosting from the tile floor, they transformed my day into his achievement party. I didn't make a fuss, but the next morning, my mom stumbled upon something left on the kitchen table and began screaming. They say a baby shower is meant to be a joyful event, a gentle, love-filled occasion with soft colors, delicate decorations, polite laughter, and people fawning over tiny socks and onesies. That's what I envisioned when I spent 2 full weeks preparing everything. I hadn't planned anything extravagant, just a cozy, heartfelt afternoon that felt like it was mine. I paid for all the food, I ordered the cake, chose the decorations, and scrubbed the living room so it wouldn't reek of stale takeout and my dad's ever-present cigars. I even made a playlist, gentle acoustic tracks, the kind of music I imagined might soothe my daughter to sleep one day. I climbed up on a stool, 8 months pregnant, and hung paper garlands across the windows because no one offered to lend a hand. And I did it all hoping that, just for once, maybe they would actually be happy for me. At first, it seemed like they might be. A few family members trickled in holding wrapped presents. My aunt brought a collection of baby books. My cousin gave me a little stuffed fox and said it reminded her of something I used to carry around as a child. For a moment, I let myself believe maybe this day would turn out okay. But then my parents got up in front of everyone. My mom tapped her wine glass with a fork and cleared her throat, smiling like she was about to share news of her own pregnancy. My dad wrapped his arm around her, beaming. I saw Roger, just to the side, shifting his weight nervously, barely able to hide his smile. Right before the cake, my mom said in that overly sweet tone I recognized too well, "We just wanted to share a little surprise." I knew immediately. This wasn't going to be my moment anymore. Roger stepped forward, holding up a letter like it was something sacred. "I got in," he said, glowing. "Stanford, full acceptance." The room burst into applause. Someone even let out a cheer. My aunt, who had just minutes earlier told me how excited she was to meet my baby, rushed to hug him like she'd just won the lottery. And just like that, the entire atmosphere shifted. You could feel it, like someone had uncorked a bottle labeled "Better News," and everyone eagerly drank it up. My baby shower morphed into a college celebration in less time than it takes to light birthday candles. No one had to say it aloud. It was obvious. The shift wasn't verbal, it was physical. Chairs scraped across the floor, rearranged around Roger. The snack table I had arranged with such care turned into a buffet for his congratulations. The cake I had picked out with so much thought, it sat untouched, forgotten, like the reason we were supposed to be gathering. Then his friends started showing up, not mine, his. A wave of loud teenagers with backpacks still slung over their shoulders crashed through the door like they owned the place. One of them shouted, "Where's the party at?" Another came in carrying a speaker, already blasting music loud enough to shake the windows. The quiet lullaby playlist I had carefully built, it vanished under thumping bass. I was still holding a cup of ginger tea someone had given me, still wearing the soft pink sash that said Mom-to-be, the one my cousin had bought just for the occasion. No one noticed. They shifted the gifts off the main table to make room for alcohol and soda. My mom mentioned offhandedly that we'd cut the cake later, once things settled down. But then the cake got shoved aside. Someone plopped a 2-liter soda bottle next to it, which tipped and spilled fizzy syrup down the frosting. I picked up a napkin and started blotting it. The frosting had smeared onto the table. I got down on my knees to wipe it properly before it dried. And while I was kneeling, 8 months pregnant, wiping frosting off the floor like some afterthought maid, someone stepped over me to hug Roger. They didn't even say, "Excuse me." I stayed there for a few seconds, just crouched on the floor, hands sticky with icing, breathing in deep through my nose while they laughed and shouted over my head. I could hear Roger in the other room talking about campus visits and dorm preferences. My mom was bragging about the tutors they'd hired to help him reach his potential. The same mom who told me at 16 that college was a scam and I should just get a job at the supermarket, so I did. I worked shifts until my feet ached. Then came home and packed shipping boxes for my tiny online shop. I figured things out on my own, and when my business started to grow, I didn't ask them for anything. I paid bills, I saved, I bought this house with money they didn't even know I had, but somehow they still believed it was theirs. My mom once said I was lucky to be able to live at home during my pregnancy. She said it like she was doing me a favor, completely forgetting that I paid the mortgage, the utilities, and even part of Roger's tutoring last year. It all played in my head as I slowly stood up, sticky napkin still in hand. I looked around the room. My decorations were crumpled. My baby name banner had been pushed aside to make space for a hand-drawn sign that said, "Congrats, Roger." I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I walked to the kitchen, washed my hands, dried them on a dish towel, and I went to my room. I closed the door, sat on the bed. My back ached. My feet were swollen, but my head was clear down the hall. The music thumped like a pulse that didn't belong to me. I picked up my phone, opened a folder I'd been quietly building for weeks. I didn't argue, but I also didn't forget I used to think things were equal when we were little, that we were just two kids in the same storm trying to stay dry under the same leaking roof. But when I look back now, really look, I can see the way the scales were always tipped. Even in the small things, when I was 6 and Roger was 4, he threw my favorite doll in the fireplace. I cried for an hour. My mom told me it was my fault for leaving it where he could reach it, when I said that wasn't fair. She sent me to my room for talking back. Roger got dessert that night. I didn't. In 3rd grade, I won 2nd place in the spelling bee. I came home beaming, holding the ribbon like it was made of gold. My dad glanced at it and said, "Just 2nd. Maybe next year." When Roger won a participation medal in a soccer tournament, they threw him a pizza party when I got a B on a math test in 8th grade. My dad said, "Well, at least you're trying." When Roger got the same grade a year later, he got a tutor and a full lecture about unlocking his brilliance. I was expected to help around the house because I was more mature. I did dishes while Roger played video games. I cleaned while he got praised for remembering to take out the trash once a week. I was told to be patient, to be grateful, to set an example. The older I got, the more invisible I became. When I was 16 and said I wanted to go to college, my mom laughed. "College for what? So you can waste 4 years and come out in debt?" "Oh, honey, you're better off getting a job and saving up." So I did. I applied to everything: grocery stores, retail, warehouses. I got hired at a discount clothing store and worked the floor during Black Friday while Roger was still in middle school. By the time he was 16, he had a brand new laptop, 3 private tutors, and a college prep coach. My parents took out a small loan to cover it. They called it an investment. They never asked me if I needed help with anything. I remember once at 17, I got into a minor car accident on the way to work. I wasn't hurt, just shaken. I called my mom from the side of the road. She sighed and said, "You should have been more careful," then hung up 2 years later. Roger dented his fender in a parking lot, and my dad left work early to go comfort him. He told everyone at dinner that night how grown-up Roger had been for us. Calling him at 19. I started my online shop. It was small, just reselling clearance items and shipping them from my bedroom. I packed orders at night, sometimes falling asleep beside the printer. I never told anyone how many returns I had to eat, how often shipping delays made customers furious. I just kept going, and slowly it worked. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't flashy, but it was stable enough to quit my job, enough to build something real. When I bought the house, I didn't tell my parents right away. I just invited them over and handed them the keys. My mom cried. My dad patted Roger on the back and said, "Now your sister has a place where we can all be together." They moved in the next month. They never asked if they should contribute, never offered to split bills. They acted like I was doing what any daughter would do. I let it slide. I told myself it was temporary. I thought maybe if I gave enough, they'd finally see me. When I told them I was pregnant, I expected shock. Disappointment. Maybe what I got was worse. "Oh," my mom said, blinking. "Oh, I guess that's happening." My dad asked if the father was in the picture. I said no. They nodded. No follow-up, no congratulations. They told Roger at dinner. The next night he laughed and said, "Guess we'll have to baby-proof the Xbox. I'll have to," but only because it was easier than crying. When I offered to hire someone part-time to take over some of my order fulfillment so I could rest during the last few months of pregnancy. My dad asked, "Are you sure you can afford that?" "What about Roger's application fees?" I wish I could say that was the moment I broke, but it wasn't. It was just another weight added to a pocket already dragging me down. Something shifted, though, quietly. I started digging, researching, asking the right questions, getting ready. Because if they weren't going to protect me, then I had no choice but to protect myself and my daughter. I didn't want her earliest memories to be of me cleaning up after people who treated me like a utility. I didn't want her to grow up thinking that love was something you earned through silence and constant sacrifice. So I kept smiling, kept saying yes, kept helping. Every time someone needed something, I'd reply, "Of course," even as I kept quietly planning. That baby shower had never really been about me, not in their eyes. To them, it was just another excuse to host, to gather, to flaunt their version of family. But it also became the last time I would allow them to take over like that. They just didn't know it yet. The house was silent, but not the peaceful kind. It was the sort of stillness that hangs heavy, like the split second before a scream, like a breath being held too long. I stood in the kitchen, pouring a mug of tea, the gentle hiss of the kettle the only sound surrounding me. The sun had barely started its rise outside, but inside, the counters were still sticky with spilled soda, and the sink was overflowing with dishes that weren't mine. I had arranged the notices deliberately, one placed in the center of the table, 3 more underneath, each one marked with their names in bold black ink. The baby inside me shifted as I eased into the chair, gently rubbing my lower back. My body was sore, but my thoughts were focused. I had been getting ready for this longer than they had any idea. At exactly 7:02 a.m., I heard the floorboards creak in the hallway, my mother's slippers dragging. She entered the kitchen with a tired grunt, and then froze in place when she spotted the table. I didn't glance up. I didn't have to. "What is this?" she asked, her voice still thick with sleep. I took a sip of my tea. She reached for the top page and began to read. It only took 5 seconds. Her eyes widened. Her mouth fell open. "What the hell is this?" she snapped, her voice cutting through the morning stillness. Another pause, then she screamed, "Lily, what is this?" The mug in my hand stayed perfectly steady. I took another sip. My father stumbled into the room in his robe, squinting like he hadn't fully woken up. Roger came in right after, yawning and rubbing his eyes. "What's going on?" my dad asked groggily. "She's evicting us," my mom shouted, waving the paper as if it were on fire. Roger froze in place. "What?" he croaked. I finally looked up. "I've given you 30 days. Everything's written there." "You're joking," my dad said, stepping forward, snatching one of the papers for himself. "This can't be real. What even is this?" "I mailed the certified letters yesterday," I said evenly. "They'll be delivered this afternoon. These are just courtesy copies." You're kicking us out?" Roger's voice cracked. "What is wrong with you?" "I'm taking my house back." My mom's hands trembled, and when she spoke again, her voice broke completely. "After everything we've done for you," she shouted, "you're really doing this now? Now, when you're about to give birth?" "No," I replied. "I'm doing this because I'm about to give birth." Roger slammed his palm against the table. The stack of papers slid off and scattered across the floor. "You're blowing this way out of proportion," he yelled. "It was one party. Just one stupid party that got too loud. Jesus, Lily, it was one party." I stood up slowly. "You took my baby shower. You turned it into a frat night. You let people I didn't even know trash my house while I was scrubbing frosting off the floor like the damn maid we were celebrating." He shouted. "It wasn't even a big deal until you made it one." My mom rounded the table like she might physically block me. "This isn't just your house," she cried. "We've lived here for years." "Yes," I said, "rent-free." My dad stepped forward, arms out like a mediator. "Come on," he said. "We're family. This is just emotions running high. You don't really want us out? We'll clean up. We'll apologize. We'll make it right." I stared at him. "No." I said, "You'll gaslight me into thinking I'm overreacting, like you always do. Then you'll go back to pretending this house and my life are yours to manage." My mom's face was red now. Bright red. She looked like she might explode you. "Ungrateful little brat. You think you're better than us because you started a stupid online store? You think that makes you important. We raised you. We sacrificed for you." I laughed quietly, just one breath of disbelief. "You sacrificed me for Roger every single time." My father's jaw tightened. "That's not true." I turned toward him when I wanted to go to college, he told me. "It was a scam when Roger wanted it. You spent thousands on tutors when I worked night shifts. You told me to stop complaining. When Roger worked one summer job, you called him responsible. I paid the mortgage. I bought this house, and you still called it ours." Roger slammed his chair back. "You've been waiting to do this? You've been planning this the whole time, haven't you?" Yes, I said. I have. He looked at me like I'd stabbed him. You're throwing your family out over a stupid party, over a moment that's sick. It wasn't a moment, I said. It was every moment for years. This just made it obvious. My mom dropped to a chair and started crying. Loud, dramatic sobs like a soap opera actress. How are we going to live? Where are we supposed to go? What will people think? That's not my problem anymore. I said we won't. Leave, she snapped suddenly, her eyes wild. You can't make us leave. You can't just throw your own parents onto the street. I can, I said, and I have. She looked down at the paper still in her hand. Her lips moved as she read the words again like they might change. This isn't legal, she whispered. I reached into the drawer and pulled out a folder. Inside were copies of the deed, the notice, the certified mail receipts. I laid them gently on the table. It is, I said. I made sure Roger grabbed the folder and flung it across the room. Papers scattered like snow. You're heartless, he said. No, I said. I'm finally protecting mine. The silence returned. Not the uneasy kind from earlier. This one was heavy. I stood there, surrounded by the mess they made, and for the first time in years, it wasn't mine to clean up. I want you all out by the end of the month, I said. I've arranged for a friend to help you pack if you need it. You're not serious, my father said. You'll change your mind. I looked him, dead in the eyes. No, I said I won't. Then I turned and walked back to my room, past the torn-up streamers, the wilting balloons, and the torn edges of the banner that had once spelled my daughter's name. They had erased me, but I was done being invisible. The first 3 days were oddly quiet, too quiet. I half expected more shouting, more door slamming. But instead, the house settled into a strange limbo, where no one looked at me, and I didn't try to be seen. They moved like ghosts. Roger stopped blaring music from his room. My mother stopped pretending to clean the kitchen. She never actually cleaned. My father sat on the porch for hours, holding the same cup of coffee, barely touched. But I knew the silence wouldn't last. On the 4th day, the calls began. Started with Aunt Rachel, then Uncle Ted, then my mom's friend from church, who hadn't spoken to me in 3 years, suddenly texted, "We're really concerned about you, sweetie, concerned." Right? It was obvious my mother had begun her campaign. She'd been painting me as hormonal unstable. Probably not thinking straight because of the baby. She's making rash decisions, she'd said to someone I saw. The forwarded message from a cousin. We don't want to stress her out, but she needs help. They were spinning it as concern is love, as the kind of emotional pressure designed to make me feel like the bad guy the next day my father asked to talk. We'll start contributing, he said. Rent bills. We should have done that before. You're right, he said it. Like it was a peace offering, like it erased everything you had. Years, I said. You didn't just forget, you chose not to. He nodded, then added, but think about what this looks like to the rest of the family. There was the shame card. I smiled and walked away. Day 7. Roger tried a different tactic. I talked to Coach Harrison. He said over dinner. He said if I defer a year, I might lose my scholarship. We have to move right now. I can't focus. I can't even sleep. I nodded. Tough. You don't even care, he snapped. You didn't care when I was 8 months pregnant and scrubbing frosting off the floor. He slammed his fork down and stormed off. Day 10. I got a call from my business partner. Hey, just a heads up, she said hesitantly. Someone emailed me anonymously claiming you're emotionally unstable and might not be able to handle running the business after the baby comes. They suggested I start looking at new leadership. My stomach sank, but only for a moment. I took a screenshot of the email, cross-referenced the language with messages my mother had sent before. It matched word for word. I didn't reply. I forwarded it to my lawyer. Day 12. They stopped pretending my mom cornered me in the hallway. I know you. Think you're strong now, she hissed. But when that baby comes and you're exhausted and overwhelmed, we'll see how long this lasts. Don't come crawling back when you realize you need us. I looked her in the eye. I already realized. I don't. Day 16. A sheriff's deputy dropped off a letter at the front door. My dad opened it, read it, and punched the wall. Court filing, he muttered. They had hoped I wouldn't go through with the eviction legally, that I'd crack, that I'd give up, but the papers were filed. The hearing was scheduled. I wasn't backing down. Day 21. They tried guilt again. My mother sobbed loudly in the living room, loud enough that the neighbors probably heard. She listed everything she'd ever done for me, how she let me live at home, how she watched over me during my pregnancy, how she sacrificed her peace for me. I sat in my room, noise-canceling headphones over my ears, finishing baby registry updates. Day 25. Roger called his girlfriend over and loudly said in the kitchen, "She's crazy. She's going to ruin her kid's life without us." I walked in, looked at his girlfriend who had been at the baby shower and said, "You helped ruin my baby shower. You might want to leave before." I wrote down the names of every underage person who had been drinking that night, and I submitted the report with your name attached. Her face went pale, and without a word, she turned and walked out. Day 28. They began packing. Suitcases started appearing like shadows in the hallway. Reluctantly, gradually, a bag here, a box there. I didn't smirk, didn't even crack a smile. I simply waited. By the 30th day, the house was already halfway empty. My dad didn't say a word when he left. He walked out the door without a single glance back. My mother stood in the foyer, arms crossed tight, eyes wet with unshed tears. "You'll regret this," she whispered. "Family is forever." "I agree," I said. "That's why I'm creating one that actually deserves to stay." Roger was the last to go. He stood at the doorway, a backpack hanging off one shoulder. "You're lucky, you know," he said. "Without me, there's no one left to blame." "Then maybe I'll finally have some peace," I replied. He rolled his eyes and walked out. The door closed behind him. Silence. Not the sharp kind, not the kind that simmers. A different kind. A calm, freeing silence. I stood in the middle of the living room. The space looked larger without their belongings. Brighter, even, like it had been holding its breath and finally exhaled. I walked into the nursery, opened the closet door, folded a few tiny onesies, and placed a soft pink blanket in the crib. Outside, the wind moved softly through the trees. I sat down and rested one hand on my belly. For the first time in my entire life, I felt truly safe. Not because someone else created that safety, but because I did. Dinan. Update. It's been 4 years. Last month, my daughter started preschool. She wore a little purple backpack and told me she was going to teach everyone how to draw clouds. She's kind, curious, strong-willed. She reminds me of myself, only better. The business is still going strong. I never had to close it, not even during the exhausting newborn phase. I brought on 2 more employees, and last year we crossed the 6-figure mark for the first time. These days, I work fewer hours. I don't grind like I used to. Now, I finally have room just to be. As for my family, we haven't spoken since the day they left. I never reached out, and they never tried either. But you know how relatives talk. Weddings, funerals, people love to whisper. From what I've heard, Roger dropped out after his first year. Turns out it's hard to keep up when no one's there to clean up after you. My parents moved in with one of my uncles, but that didn't last long. Word is he kicked them out after 6 months. Unpaid bills. And my mom, apparently, was impossible to live with. They're not doing well. And no, I don't feel good about that. But I don't feel guilty either. I gave them opportunity after opportunity. All I ever asked for was the bare minimum. And when they refused to meet even that, I finally stopped giving everything. Some people say family is unconditional. But to me, respect should be. So that's the update. Do you think I made the right choice? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.